This afternoon at the Federal High Court in Abuja, the gentleman clad in white here, you can see him, the gentleman that is clad in white there, that is the former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Throughout the 8 years of Muhammadu Buhari as President of Nigeria, Malami was the Federal Attorney General. Now, this is him here, clad in white, and this is a courtroom in Abuja. This is the lawyer to EFCC, Jibril Okutekwa, and this is lawyer to Abubakar, and this is an operative of the EFCC. Mostly when someone is taken to the court by the EFCC, you see the EFCC operatives putting a ring around the person, ostensibly so that the person doesn't run, right? And these are other lawyers with him. This is J.B. Daudu, a Senior Advocate of Nigeria, also one of the high-profile lawyers in this country. So, this gentleman was very powerful during his time as Attorney General, just like any other Attorney General. By the laws of Nigeria, especially the Constitution, so much powers have been given to the office of the Attorney General. As a matter of fact, it is only the office of the Attorney General that is specifically created in the Constitution among the ministers. Every other minister in the federal cabinet is as decided upon by the president. But the office of Attorney General is provided in the Constitution, and that office is very powerful. Today, 2 years after leaving office, he was arraigned at the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja. Date of arraignment, 30th October 2025. Court, Federal High Court, Abuja. Judge, Honorable Justice Emeka Nwite. Okay? Abubakar Malami, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was arraigned alongside his son, Abubakar Malami Jr., and one other individual named Hajia Bashir Asabe. Some reports have said that Hajia is one of the wives of Abubakar Malami. I'm not so sure of that, okay? But this is the name that was arraigned in the court. The three of them pleaded not guilty to the charge. EFCC presented 16-count charge against them, charges of money laundering, and they pleaded not guilty. In law, when you plead not guilty, it means you are saying that the trial should proceed. Let the prosecution present what it has against you so as to allow you the opportunity to also defend yourself. The charges include allegations of money laundering and the illegal acquisition of properties worth over 8.7 billion naira, allegedly, according to the EFCC. The charge accuses Malami and co. of conspiring to conceal, disguise, and return proceeds of illegal activities, corruption, right? It states that the alleged offenses took place between 2015, Malami became Attorney General in 2015 when Muhammadu Buhari was sworn in, and 2025, 2 years after he left office as Attorney General. That the alleged offenses primarily occurred or took place within the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, during Malami's time as Attorney General of the Federation, which, according to the EFCC, constitutes abuse of office under the law. This is the EFCC chairman, the EFCC headquarters, and they are expected to play a critical role, even though they have farmed out the case to a private prosecutor. They are expected to play a critical role in providing evidence to the private prosecutor, Jibril Okutekwa, and then going with him to the court to present the evidence through the witnesses, right? The EFCC claims in the charge that Malami and his son used a company known as Metropolitan Auto Tech Limited to hide the sum of 1.014 billion naira in a sterling bank account from July 2022 to June 2025, allegedly by the EFCC. That the accused persons are also accused of depositing an additional 600 million naira between September 2020 and February 2021. That means the EFCC has gone back to their books. They have gone back to their statement of account to see the transactions that went on in those accounts. The properties include, according to the EFCC, a luxury duplex on Amazon Street, Maitama, Abuja, purchased for 500 million naira. A property on Onisha Crescent, Gariki, also in Abuja, purchased for the sum of 700 million naira. And another property in Jabi district, also in Abuja, purchased for the sum of 850 million naira. We're not talking about small money here. We're talking about, serious amount of money. Additional acquisitions include real estate on Rhine Street, Maitama, Abuja for 430 million naira. Another one, EFCC says, is a property at the Sokoro district for the sum of 210 million naira. And another one, 325 million naira. And another property at an estate known as FAP Estate. It's a well-known estate in Abuja, if you're familiar with estate development in Abuja, at Gwarimpa. That one, the worth of that one is 120 million naira, allegedly by the EFCC, according to the charge. These are the operatives of the EFCC. Normally, they're the ones that bring the accused person from their custody straight to the court, and they're still around. They're armed now, so they stay till the end of trial, until the end of the case up to judgment. The EFCC further alleges that Abubakar Malami, former Attorney General of the Federation, used unlawful proceeds totaling 952 million naira to acquire multiple properties in Abuja, Kano, and Benin Kebbi, where the Attorney General is from, between 2018 and 2023. EFCC further says that these acquisitions were allegedly made through proxies and corporate entities to obscure ownership. That is to say, Abubakar Malami did not go out by himself to make purchases using his name. He used proxies, son, daughter, associates, or whatever. Just proxies, not his name. Allegedly, according to the EFCC. Now, EFCC says that Hajia Bashira Sabeh, described as an employee of the Rahamaniya Properties Limited, that is a property that Abubakar Malami is connected with, is said to have played a central role in facilitating these property deals and disguising ownership on Malami's behalf. So that means that the bank account of Hajia would have certainly been probed one by one by the EFCC before they go by this conclusion, allegedly. Right? Now, we are talking about money laundering here. So EFCC, by the charge, states that the actions of Malami, his son, and Hajia are actions in violation of the provisions of the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011 as amended, and the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. Okay? Because before you take someone to court, there must be a provision of a written law that criminalizes the person's action. So what the EFCC is saying is that they are taking this man to court along with these other two persons pursuant to the provisions of this law. Okay? Money Laundering Act. The EFCC has listed a range of witnesses that will go to court to testify and tie Abubakar Malami and the other persons to the charge. You cannot succeed without witnesses to testify. So the EFCC, they've listed witnesses, they've listed their own investigators that handled the matter, the bank officials that will come and testify, bureau de change people, operators. So that means that money had been moved from naira to dollar or from dollar to naira. So, and company representatives to support the case of the EFCC, right? As it would be expected of them. Now, let's look at the legalese in this matter. Right? 1. He who alleges must prove. This places the legal burden on EFCC to show by evidence that the accused persons, the three of them, committed money laundering offenses. That's the law. You say this person has committed an offense. It is your responsibility to prove the allegation. 2. The law is that a charge will fail if no evidence is provided by the accuser to substantiate the accusation. Very important. If it fails, Malami and co. will be discharged and acquitted. So, the EFCC has a heavy burden here under the law. It is a legal burden. So the man can just keep quiet, waiting to hear what the EFCC is saying. If the EFCC says nothing, he can tell the court, my lord, I have nothing to say, just allow me to go. So the burden on the EFCC is a legal burden to establish the allegation against him. I'm sure the EFCC is prepared for that. 3, if substantial evidence is provided by the EFCC against Malami, Malami goes to jail upon being found guilty by the courts. Same will also go for his son and for Ajia. If Malami goes to jail, upon being found guilty, if the evidence is overwhelming and the court has no option than to send him to jail, Malami will go down in history as perhaps the first Attorney General of the Federation in Nigeria to be convicted. But we are not there. The matter is just unfolding. No one knows how it's going. Now, 4, note that it is possible to convict only the son and not convict Malami, and vice versa. So, in criminal trial, everybody answers to his name. The fact that 3 people have been charged to court doesn't mean that all of them are going to be convicted. Doesn't mean that all of them are going to be found guilty. It is possible to find only the son guilty or find Hajia guilty without finding Malami guilty. If you are unable to link Malami to the activities of Hajia and the son, Malami can be discharged and acquitted. If you are unable to link Hajia to money laundering, Hajia can be, discharged and acquitted. The same with the son of Malami, right? It all depends on the evidence against each and every one of them. I said, in criminal trial, you answer to your name. The fact that they are charged together does not mean that they must be convicted together. It will depend on the evidence, and that will be used against each and every one of them. If it is also possible to convict all of them, if the evidence against them is strong enough and links each person's action with the other. So if they are linked in that circle, this one gave instruction for money to be given to this, the money is seen to be corrupt money, and the money was taken by this person and then laundered and so on, all of them are linked together, then it is possible to convict all of them. Now let's look at the Supreme Court on issues of money laundering. There's nothing new under the law. What has been before. Under the law, there are precedents, right? In Nwabushi versus Federal Republic of Nigeria, decided recently by the Supreme Court 2023, this is a Supreme Court judgment. If you check Law Pavilion, you will see it. The Supreme Court said, money laundering is a global scourge that affects countries worldwide, Nigeria not being an exception. It has been described as the washing of illegitimate money in a bid to make it appear clean or legitimate. It involves the process of transforming the proceeds of crime into ostensibly legitimate money or other assets. Okay? So if you collect bribe as a public officer and you hide that bribe, you now go and then use the money to do legitimate things and so on, make it look legitimate, it qualifies for what the Supreme Court has defined as money laundering in the case of Nwabushi versus Federal Republic of Nigeria 2023. The Supreme Court still has said this, quote, for a person to be guilty of an offense of money laundering, he must have acquired, note, used, retained, or taken possession or control of any fund or property knowingly or reasonably ought to have known that such fund or property is or forms part of the proceeds of an unlawful action. So it places the burden back on the EFCC to prove the charge of money laundering. So much is required of the EFCC, but it is not impossible. If the facts are there, the evidence is there, then the person can rightly be convicted. Supreme Court also said, still in that same case, Nwabushi's case, it says, quote, for the offense of money laundering to exist, the primary fund or property from which derives the money in question or other transactions must have been obtained by committing a crime, receipt of bribe, corruption, is a crime. Okay? If it is lawfully obtained, okay, money laundering cannot exist on the basis of such lawfully acquired funds. So you pay a contractor to do road construction. The money comes straight from government accounts. This man is a contractor. He goes ahead to execute. Along the way, you charge him to court that he did not execute based on specification. It will be difficult to sustain money laundering charges against that contractor. So it also adds additional burden on the EFCC. These are the things that the EFCC will have to prove before somebody can be found guilty, according to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Now let's look at it also, the flip side. Malami is likely to plead that his money came from his law practice. You know, as a lawyer, you can hardly trace the funds in this country. There are some senior advocates that charge very high amount of money. They charge up to 500 million naira, 600, 1 billion to do cases or whatever. So I see Malami claiming or pleading that the money in issue came from his law practice. That's why we're looking at the flip side now. I also see him saying that the money is from his fast food business, from his private elementary schools, and also from the university, from his farm, and so on. Therefore pleading that the money has legitimate sources. I see him say that in court, right? The burden will then be on the EFCC to show otherwise, so as to be able to secure conviction against him. If not, the 16 count charges can collapse in one day, and Malami and co. will be acquitted and discharged. Remember, under the Nigerian legal system, the accused person is presumed innocent until proved otherwise. So the burden is on the prosecution, in this case the EFCC, through its counsel, Jibril Okutekpa, to bring out the evidence against this man and to be able to close all gaps and show that the money in issue could not have come from his private law practice, that the money in issue could not have come from his fast food business, could not have come from the private elementary schools that he has in Kebbi State, could not have come from the private university he has in Kebbi State, could not have come from agriculture, his farm. If the EFCC is able to prove that and show that the money is through the proceeds of crime, then Abubakar Malami will have a serious case to answer before the court. The days ahead will be very interesting. What we need as citizens of this country is fair trial for all sides, fair trial for the federal government, fair trial for Malami, the accused person. We also want to see speedy trial. Cases in this country have had to linger in courts like almost forever. We want to see speedy trial so that we know if Malami is guilty or if he is not guilty. Many thanks always for watching.